Hello, my name is Anna Rose, and I'm a member of the Save the El Rey team. And I'm here to give you a community update. This is something that we gave at Stobel on May 13th, 2025, and I've recorded it here so that other community members can learn about our progress. Here's a rundown of how this presentation is going to go. We've divided it up into three acts, very theatrical of us. And we start with, from dream to movement, how the Save the El Rey campaign began. We moved into a second act where we talk about some of the reality checks that we've hit as we've started this campaign. And then the third act is about your role in the Save the El Rey campaign and really restoring this theater for downtown Chico. So let's start from the beginning. As many of you probably remember, back in April of 2024, the owners of the El Rey Theater put the building up for sale. They asked $1.95 million for the iconic theater from 1906. And when this news came about, all of Chico was wondering what would happen, concerned that it would become nothing more than a parking lot. And I want to note that the El Rey Theater is actually registered as a historic landmark in the Chico's Historic Resources Inventory. So if someone does come in and decides to demolish the building, the city council will have to approve that demolition. So we're really happy that it does have some protection from historic preservation standpoint. However, many people throughout Chico were concerned that something would happen to this building. Maybe it wouldn't be demolished, but it would be transformed and unrecognizable. And I know many of us saw these types of Facebook posts, but our board member, Aubrey Pope, posted something suggesting that all of Chico should come together and buy the El Rey, make it a community-owned theater. Perhaps make it into a cooperative with memberships. And people were really excited about this idea. And people in her post were suggesting, if everyone in Chico pitched in, it would only cost, $19 per person to buy the El Rey Theater. And that's a little altruistic, but this post really did get the ball rolling for our group. After Aubrey posted that suggestion, the original team came together. I reached out to Aubrey. I didn't know her at the time, and I'm a history professor, and I offered my support writing grants or working on historic preservation initiatives. Dustin Vaught, he's a filmmaker in town. He also didn't know Aubrey at the time, but he reached out offering his services with film and cinema. And then also Mahina Gannett, who has done a lot of live events producing throughout Chico, including booking the Big Room at Sierra Nevada. She also connected with Aubrey, and the four of us got together last summer in 2024 and started to hash out a plan. How can we save the El Rey? The early stages included a lot of meetings, and I've included some logos here just to give you a sampling of the types of meetings that we had in the summer of 24. We started, of course, with the city of Chico. We met with city council members, the planning department. We met with the Arts Commission. And unfortunately, the city does not have a way or the resources to buy the El Rey. But there might be some opportunities with the Arts Commission for mural restoration down the line. We also met with the El Rey Theater Alliance, the members who started the El Rey Theater Alliance about 10 or 15 years ago, who started a very similar group as us when the El Rey was for sale back then. So we learned what went well for their group, what maybe areas they could have improved upon. We wanted to learn what worked and what didn't from them, and they've been really instrumental in helping us set this up. We also established a contact at Capital Rivers Commercial, Carrie Welch. She's a commercial realtor, and she's representing our group in the eventual process to buy the building. And then we met with, the Chico Chamber. Mike Egbert has been very open, let us use his facilities to host meetings, has connected us with people throughout town. In addition, we talked to Explore Butte, Travel Chico, and CARD. These are foundational organizations that care about tourism, hospitality, and entertainment in Chico, and they are all, on board, ready to support and create partnerships with us where we can help each other out in the future. One of the big issues that we realized through these meetings was that the El Rey needed a lot of structural support. It needs a lot of repairs, unfortunately. So once we learned of some issues with the roof and the HVAC, we contacted Butte Construction Company and RGA, which is an architectural firm, to go through the building and start to understand what exactly it would need, how much money it would need to make an operational theater. In addition, I mean, I'm telling you all of this. We really met with so many different people. We met with the National Independent Venue Association to talk about what that might look like for Chico and the El Rey. Met with Monka and Pat Macias, who was very helpful in helping us, see what a nonprofit startup would be like. And then, of course, the Chico Heritage Association. I talked with some members there who had done a similar campaign for the Senator Theater in the 90s, and they were very helpful in letting me know kind of what to expect in terms of crowdfunding and donations. And then, of course, Chico State is the neighbor of El Rey, and the University Foundation has been very helping, given us some meaningful strategies going forward. After the initial meeting phase, we started researching comparable theaters in the area. Our team went out to four different theaters in Northern California to talk to the owners, to talk to the people who are operating these venues and learn about their preservation processes because a lot of them ended up having to restore these buildings. We learned about their profit margins. We learned what type of events work in their towns and what kind don't. So that was really influential in just helping us determine a business plan. And so those are the four. We visited the Oroville State Theater, the Butte Theater in Gridley, the Cascade Theater in Reading, and the Civic Auditorium in Reading. And in addition, we've done a lot of research about the type of theater that we would like the El Rey to become. And I provided a column on the right here. We would love to see the El Rey become something like the Alamo Draft House in San Francisco or McMenamins in Portland. Fremont Theater in San Luis Obispo actually looks a lot like the El Rey on the inside, and it has a nice art house vibe. The Guild Theater in Menlo Park and the Beverly Theater in Los Angeles. So those are just some of the theaters that we've researched. We've looked into many more, but we think that they're great models. After we did that initial research and meeting phase, we ultimately decided to set up a fund with North Valley Community Foundation. They allow us to set up a fund and then we get the benefits of their nonprofit status. So anyone who donates to the Save the El Rey campaign can have it as a tax deduction because of the nonprofit status. And North Valley Community Fund, as many of you know, is instrumental in our community for helping to provide these types of funds for nonprofit related work. And they helped us kind of hone in on our mission and our purpose. We then established a board of directors, and we wanted to make sure that the board represented Chico, that we had diverse skill sets, that we were looking at people from different generations who have experienced the El Rey. And so we established a really robust board. This included Kevin Easterling from an architect from RGA, Nicole Farley, who's the executive director at Explore Butte. We have Mahina Gannett, who's the chair of Save the El Rey, and she's a live events producer. Joey Mashuri is an artist and activist. Aubrey Pope is a musician and activist. I'm Anna Rose. I'm a history professor. We have Mike Vasquez, who is a UX sound designer for Google. Dustin Votts, a film producer, and Colleen Winters is a real estate developer and the owner of Ferb. So this has been great. But once we started meeting, we realized there were also some areas we wanted to really focus on and get other community partners and experts in the area to help us to develop these out. So we created a number of advisory committees. We have an advisory committee with a dynamic group of people from Chico who have expertise in marketing and have helped us to raise awareness for our campaign. Similarly, so we have a committee about production, and they've gone through the El Rey Theater and helped us to figure out where we need to improve our AV equipment, our rigging, and lighting, and everything that we have to think about for the future. We also have a Grants and Preservation Commission or committee, and they're all working behind the scenes on the types of grants that the El Rey will be able to apply for down the line. Unfortunately, we can't apply for anything until we have some kind of a rental agreement with the building or an ownership of the building. So that is on hold until that takes place. We also have a business development team of people who have thriving businesses in town who know about operations, the day-to-day functions, and organizational infrastructure. So they've helped us develop the business plan. And then food and beverage. Through our research, we learned that it was the food and beverage experiences and having really elevated ones at other theaters. That was where many of these theaters were making a profit. And right now, the El Rey can mostly support things like popcorn, candy, and soda. And so we brought in a team of experts from Chico to look through the theater and determine where we could fit kitchens, what kinds of food and beverage experiences we would like to offer to our cinema goers, to theater goers, to people attending concerts. Also, we've just had an outpouring of support from from really talented people throughout Chico. So Lisa Langley created our logo, the Save the El Rey flower, and Kat Sherman created the beautiful Art Deco fairy that is on all of our t-shirts, and they've donated all of their time to this effort. We also had Metric Cosmetics developed this a phenomenal video. If you haven't seen it, it's on our website. And they went into the El Rey and interviewed several people about their experiences over generations. And you can see they captured what the El Rey looks like really well in this moment and some of the critical repairs that need to take place in order to make it an operational theater. Michael Lee created our website, and this is our main hub of information. It's where donors come to make their donations, where they learn about our progress and our events. And finally, we have Amy D. She's been in charge of our social media campaign. So we have both Instagram and Facebook accounts that, for many people, are where they get their information about our campaign. And so all of this work, we ultimately decided that we wanted to create a $1 million campaign. This would fund a down payment to purchase the theater. It would replace the roof, and it would provide operational expenses for 1 year. So that was our initial $1 million campaign. We offered some incentives to donors. If you donate $50, you would receive a postcard. So many of you have received these postcards over the last few months. But we also offered kind of bigger visionary founder incentives. If you donated $100,000 or more, you could get your name, the stage or the auditorium named after you. Our campaign officially launched on August 26, 2024, after all of those months of research and kind of just getting our ducks in a row. And immediately we had an outpouring of interest. The press was, pounding at our email boxes asking for interviews. So we did interviews on TV, print newspapers, and a lot of radio interviews, actually. And all of this was just getting the word out, telling about our project, why it's so important to our community. We also have given a number of community talks where we would go to like the monthly Rotary meeting and present about our work. And it's been wonderful getting in the room with so many people who care about the El Rey and connecting with them and just making sure that they know that we exist and we're still working. So those have been very fruitful discussions. In addition, we've hosted a number of events. So once we launched the campaign, we had a launch party at Momona. Later on, Bonnie at Bonfire Storytelling, she donated all of the live stream proceeds from one of her shows to the El Rey campaign. And in late September, we had a Save the Fairies bike ride where we rode dressed as fairies from 1 mile to 5 mile. We had about 80 people participate in that one. Then later toward Christmas, Sweet Chico hosted a fairy gingerbread house workshop for some of our younger Save the El Rey enthusiasts. And then mo more recently, a couple of weeks ago, the Fae Festival donated a table to us so that we could promote our town hall and sell our t-shirts. And so all of these events have been great for getting the word out, for letting people know that we are still working at this, we still care, and all of these events, they were sponsored by local businesses in some capacity. So once we set everything in motion, we hit a bit of a reality check, a wake-up call, if you will, when we realized that our $1 million campaign, after a year, um, we've only reached less than 1% from donations. So here are our donations to date. When we saw these numbers and realized, oh, we're not going to reach that $1 million mark. Our total contributions are $7,200, but our balance is $5,800. And the balance is different because we've had processing fees, some event insurance, we've bought t-shirts, some marketing materials. We've really tried not to dip into our funds, but it's been a necessity at some point. In terms of, some stats about the donations, we've had 72 donors contribute over the last, since August. And our median donation is $50. Our largest donation has been $1,000. And the reach has been beyond Chico. Obviously, most people came from Chico, but we've had from other cities in California and also 7 out-of-state donors. So the El Rey is beloved by people across the US. Here's a pie chart of our donor distribution or donation distribution. And you can see that about half of our donations are in that under $50 range. And then this chart is very helpful because it shows our donations over time. So it begins in August of 24 and it ends in about April of 25. And it shows that once we started the campaign, the donations started to come in slowly and then dropped. And then right in the middle, there's a big spike. And that is when we had our Save the Fairies bike ride. And so our donations really, went through the roof at that point. And it does show you how important events are to keep people interested, engaged, and aware of what's going on at the El Rey. So we want to make sure that we continue to do more of these events to capture that enthusiasm and to capture get more donations as well. And then after the Save the Fairies bike ride, the donations just they flatline around October. And that's intentional. We stopped fundraising. We stopped fundraising because we kept hearing the same concern over and over. And I call it the donor dilemma. And so our board members were hearing it. We were hearing it on Facebook or in our emails. And people, they were hesitant to donate until the building was secured. They were concerned that, say, I want to give you $5,000 toward, buying the El Rey. What happens if somebody comes in and buys it before you're able to raise enough money? What happens to my money? That is a Absolutely valid concern. It is something that we kept hearing again. And so we want to, let you know first off, what happens to the donations if the theater is sold to someone else? The donations would be given to a nonprofit in Chico with a similar mission. This is exactly what happened to the El Rey Theater Alliance, the group before us that tried to do this. They raised about the same amount of money, and ultimately, someone else came in and bought the theater, and their organization had to dissolve. And when it dissolved, the North Valley Community Foundation distributed those about $7,000 worth of funds between the Chico Heritage Association and the Chico History Museum because they had similar missions about historic preservation. So that is a concern that we kept hearing, and that is why we stopped fundraising. I keep calling it a chicken and an egg conundrum, though, because we need the donations to buy the building, but we need the building to entice more donations. So we were kind of stuck. Um, Once we realized that this was really a sticky point, we decided to switch tactics. Instead of courting crowdfunding or donations only, we decided to start really looking at benefactors, large investors who could buy the El Rey outright, who could provide the much needed funds for its repair and restoration. And so we have met had dozens of meetings with benefactors and investors about this possibility over the last few months. And the top question we kept getting from them, they wanted to know, what is the cost all in? They saw the price tag, the $1.95 million that, asking price, but they want to know what it's going to cost to repair this, this image here. The roof, the ceiling, the hole in the ceiling, repair these murals. And so with that, they wanted to know what's the total cost to create not only, a profitable state-of-the-art theater, something that will stay open for decades and decades to come. Well, that's when we began really budgeting and looking at not just the purchase price, but the repair price as well. So we got a team together to come up with a very robust budget about transforming the El Rey into a multi-use facility. And I want to stress that this isn't just cinema. We want the El Rey to be a place that specializes in live music, cinema, theater, and it can be rented for private events, so that this space is constantly active and that people are going in it all the time, remembering how much they love it, because over the last few years, it's mainly been open about once a month for shows, but we need it to be a more active space in downtown Chico. So what is it going to cost to do all of that work? I'm going to give you a breakdown. I have it broken up into four columns here. The purchase of the building, the critical repairs, the build out, and operations. And I want to just preface that this is a very broad strokes overview of the budget. If you are interested, we have spreadsheets upon spreadsheets of numbers and data that we can give you and talk more in more detail with you about. So let's start from the beginning. The purchase price that is set, it is still listed as $1.95 million. We don't know what the negotiation room will be on that, so we're conservatively saying 1.95 million. The critical repairs, we brought in Nick Starnes from Butte Construction Company to go through from top to bottom the El Rey over many, many meetings and visits to the theater. The El Rey needs a new roof. It's currently leaking, destroying those beautiful murals. It needs an HVAC. It doesn't have an HVAC, which essentially makes it unoperable, the whole building unoperable during all of those hot Chico summer months. There are some electrical concerns that need to be addressed, plumbing concerns, and some safety concerns like new fire sprinklers, smoke detectors, and then more cosmetic things like paint and carpet. The build out phase is where, the bulk of the money ends up being, but we decided to include this to help really sell the theater as something that is state of the art for Northern California, that music and theatrical productions will want to come to. The first point is expanding the stage. Because the El Rey stage currently is not that big, it's hard to accommodate theatrical and dance productions. So expanding the stage would allow for more opportunities in talent booking, but also it would give us a lot of storage underneath the space. The back of the house production facilities at present, there is a small green room for all the musical acts, for the people who are working behind the scenes, and that's it. It's a very small room. So to have a proper backstage would require the build out, a pretty massive build out. Fortunately, the El Rey has a basement. It's not developed, it has dirt floor, but it's tall enough. It's quite big and spacious down there. And it could be an excellent backstage area for these, musical talent coming through or theatrical productions that need, a lot of space. But when you start to build down or up, you're going to require elevators for ADA access. Also, we looked into expanding the kitchen and catering spaces so that the El Rey could, accommodate large events that it could cater on site so that when you go to the El Rey, you can get, your hamburger and watch a movie. So we wanted to find spaces in the El Rey to accommodate all of the refrigeration, the hoods, the vents for that type of uh, experience. The VIP lounge, many of you probably don't know, but the El Rey has a second story and it looks over the marquee. Right now it was rented as an apartment, but it could be a very neat VIP space or kind of we're calling it like a speakeasy where we could rent it out or activate it during the week as just a regular kind of bar or a small event or music venue and allows more people to be in the space at more times, allows more opportunity for people to be spending money in the space. So the VIP lounge is a great asset to this build out plan. Also, we have to discuss just modernizing the production by improving some of the AV equipment, the lighting, the rigging. Right now, there is no official, screen for cinema. The curtains are not complete. And then the last point on this build out is that the auditorium, the seating right next to the stage is a sloped floor. And that's great for cinema viewing, but if we wanted to allow this to be a space for private events like weddings or galas, it would require that the floor be non-sloped to put down tables and chairs. So creating the non-slope floor was part of the build out. And then the last part, we had a lot of people go over our operations budget. What would it cost to get the El Rey up and running? We would need, mortgage or rental payments, a lot of different types of insurance, taxes, utilities. We'd have to pay employee wages, salaries. We need to have the upfront food and beverage costs, the upfront talent buying costs, and all of the marketing materials. And again, I'm giving you a very abbreviated version of this. So the estimated cost of all of this, and I do want to preface that we were shooting for the moon here. These benefactors, investors, they asked us to lay it all out. So we tried to include absolutely everything that we could think of that we might need. This number is big, and um, for many of us, we felt really crestfallen when we saw it. But please know we can, bring it back. We can cut things. We can put things in, into phases. And a lot of this can be funded through grants. So, for example, replacing the roof, that is a historic preservation priority to preserve those murals and to preserve that, this beautiful building. We could apply for grants for that. We cannot apply for any grants until we have either ownership or some lease agreement to operate in the building, though. Okay, so that's my preface. Remember, this is like a dream scenario here of what we've put out. So we've dreamed big. The estimated cost is $15 million. So we went from an initial campaign of $1 million to $15 million over the course of about a year. So this was a big number. We know this is a big number. I do want to say, though, that not all hope is lost. We've spent a year meeting with people. We've spent a year researching, measuring the space, bringing experts in. We've had the community involved. We've budgeted. We've laid it all out for these investors. And somebody saw this. Somebody saw all this work. They realized that, this is a community asset. It is part of Chico's history, and they pledged money. So here's our big announcement for today. Uh, the Save the El Rey campaign has received a $2.5 million commitment from the Lupine Legacy Foundation. Whew, that is huge. And we are so, so, so grateful for this commitment because this will help with a lot of the restoration that needs to happen. There is a caveat here, and I put it down in asterisks at the bottom, that this Lupine Legacy Foundation, they don't want to own the building. This is a straight a donation that they would like to give. And because they don't want to own the building, this commitment would go toward restoration. And they also want to make sure that there are other community commitments out there, that there are more investors, more donors. Um, so they want to make sure that they're not the only ones supporting this endeavor. And they also want, our project scope to be solidified. So they want to know that where that $15 million is going to actually fall, what's going to be cut, phased out. And so all of those are some caveats to consider as we go forward. But nonetheless, this is huge. It is such a confidence boost. It shows that people care in this community about downtown Chico, about historic buildings, about our community history. And we are so grateful for it. All right. So that leads us to, the final act. What can you do? What can your role be in this next act now that we have this $2.5 million commitment? What's going to happen? And I wanted to preface this by saying, we've had a lot of community involvement to date. We've had 72 donors. We have 9 board of directors. We have 22 individuals and experts on advisory boards. We have 22 people who have signed up to volunteer. And we've had more than 30 businesses and organizations be our partners in different ways. So, what's our big ask for you? How can you save the El Rey? Our number one issue is securing the building. That is what we need. And it goes back to that original donor concern that people are hesitant to donate until we secure the building. So we need help securing the building. How can you do this? Help us to find partners. Do you know of businesses or organizations that could partner with us in some way, whether it's financial contributions or in-kind donations? Join our fundraising committee. We have just started, the early stages of developing a fundraising committee Do you have interest in joining a fundraising committee? Have you, do you like planning events? Do you have experience in this? We would love to have you. So please reach out if that's something that interests you. And then finally, we would love your ideas, your support, your input, your questions, everything. This is intended to be a community-owned theater. We want the community involved. We want your perspective. We want your ideas. So if you have questions, comments, ideas about this presentation or anything else, reach out to us or comment in, I'm going to post this on YouTube. Comment below. I'm going to post this on Facebook. Give me comments there. We are going to keep track of this and would love your support and your ideas. So thank you so much for all of your time today. And let's all figure out how to save the El Rey. All right. Thank you.